Alrighty, for everybody who in the last video complained that I didn't go through enough facts, alright, we're gonna go facts. All new car, all new interior, all new back, all new top, all new engine, 1.5 liter turbocharged engine, developing 172 horsepower, 164 pound-feet of torque. You get 1700 RPM full torque to 5000 RPM. You have new digital dash, new digital 7-inch display, WVGA display featuring Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, new McPherson strut link at the front, multi-link at the rear, fully independent rear suspension, 11.1-inch front ventilated disc brakes, and heated cloth seats, and available heated leather seats, and lane watch camera that shows you what's going on next to the car. 8-speaker sound system, 450-watt 10-speaker system available on the Touring trim. This is the 2016 Honda Civic EX-T, and hopefully that was enough facts for the boring people. Alright, so now that the boring stuff is out of the way, let's get on with a normal review for nice people. Hey guys, welcome to an all-new review for thegroverwheel.com. This week we're taking a look at the 2016 Honda Civic EX Turbo. This is an all-new car for Honda. This is the 10th generation of the Civic. It shares pretty much nothing in common with the 9th generation Civic that we've reviewed before and that I own. In fact, this car is a revelation. If you're comparing this to anything else in its class, I think you're going to find that this comes out on top. And it's not just my opinion. Motor Trend agrees with me, and their YouTube channel gets all kinds of reviews, so they must be right. YouTube logic. The real gem of this car is its new engine. You can get the base LX or EX models with a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine developing about 158 horsepower, which is definitely an improvement from the old 1.8 liter available on the old 9th gen Civic. But this engine is the real show. This is the engine you get in the EX-T and trims above that. It is a 1.5 liter turbocharged engine developing 172 horsepower and 164 pound-feet of juicy torque. That torque is really what this engine is about. It develops peak torque from as low as 1700 RPM all the way through 5000. Honda's really taken advantage of that 16.5 PSI of boost to get as much as they can out of this engine. But the real beauty of it is it doesn't feel like an old turbocharged engine. You don't have that long wait for the power to come on as you wait for the turbo to spool up. And it doesn't feel like it runs out of puff when you get to high RPM. In fact, peak horsepower doesn't get up to that 172 figure until you're doing about 6,000 RPM. So it still has a really linear power band. You just have this big, rich, meaty chunk of torque in the middle. Now, to take advantage of that, Honda's equipped it with one of their CVT transmissions. I'm not usually a big fan of CVTs. I don't like how they feel. They tend to be really buzzy, they tend to feel unrefined, and they tend to really just work best for fuel economy. Well, this CVT is an absolute gem. Honda's been working on CVTs just as long as anybody else, longer in fact. They've been putting them in a lot of their economy cars. But the reality is that this transmission feels fantastic. Most of the time, it doesn't feel like a CVT, and that's the best thing you can say about CVT transmissions. However, because it's a CVT, it can really take advantage of that broad torque right in the middle by keeping the engine where it's going to be producing a lot of power and where it's going to be happy. It's got a really low final drive, so the fuel economy is excellent. This car is rated at about 42 on the highway and low 30s around town. Combined EPA is about 35, but I'm getting about 40 miles to the gallon on average, and I've seen as much as 44 on highways. This engine is an absolute peach. Yep, and there we go. Boom, and we're gone. It gets right up to power, no problem. It's a really fun engine to take on the highway. That boost is always available when you're on highway speeds, and it's an absolute joy to be able to pass people without feeling like you're slamming the transmission down into a high gear. The 9th Gen Civic had a little bit of power, but it was all up at the top with VTEC. So real world, it never really felt like a gutsy engine. This power plant does, and I absolutely love it. Highway passes, this car excels. Right now we're doing 55 miles an hour. If I stomp on it to get past this truck here, 70. Not bad. But it's not just the engine where Honda's stepped up its game. It's also retuned the suspension. The 9th Gen really wasn't up to snuff. The damping wasn't great, so you'd go over a bump and it wasn't smooth, but then it would feel like it was leaning over in corners. This thing corners remarkably flat, but it's still incredibly comfortable. You don't feel like you're crashing over every bump. You don't feel like you hear every imperfection in the road. It's really quite quiet in here. It's a really great trick that the good cars in higher price ranges always master and economy cars always fall down on. You usually have to pick sporty and harsh and loud, or soft and floaty and crap in the corners. But this car does a fantastic job at both. It feels really mature. It feels grown up. It feels great. Some people had problems with how the exterior of this car looks. I actually really like it. Honda's done something a little bit more challenging visually, but I think it works. It has an aggressive look. Some people call it overstyled. I don't mind. It's 2016. Let's get some interesting vehicles. Boring, average shapes don't get remembered. People who are bold win. And I think Honda's won with this exterior just like they've won with the interior. And to be honest, the interior is more conservative, and that's what you're going to be looking at most of the time, so make everybody else look at the weird stuff. Fair enough, right? So what else have Honda improved? Well, they've utterly redesigned the interior. Gone is the Star Trek split dash with speedometer up top and a tachometer below. They've gone for a much more conventional layout, but they haven't lost a bit of their Honda futuristic touch. It is still fully digital. It's a analog rendering in digital. It looks very up to date. It looks very modern. It's easy to read still, and I love how you can select on a small screen inside the tachometer what information you want to be displayed, everything from radio data to boost pressure, fuel economy, and it's all selectable on the steering wheel here. They've also given you an excellent new 7-inch display with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. In terms of features, it is one of the better dashboards on the market. One thing I don't like, though, is where Honda has given, they've also taken away. You've lost a physical volume control. It's all swipe controls now on the dashboard. It's even a swipe control on the steering wheel. I don't know why they did this. It seems like an interesting idea, but it doesn't work in practice. I feel like someone should have told them that volume knobs just work, and maybe they should have stuck with it. It's a quirk you get used to, but the one time it's really annoying is when someone's been in the car, they've driven, they've left the radio kind of loud, you get in and you have to wait for the command system to boot up before you can turn the radio down. Honda, what were you thinking with that? It's really not great. However, the rest of it does work really well. The Android Auto feature is fantastic. You don't need to get this car with factory navigation. You can simply plug in your phone and let Google Maps take over. Google Maps comes up in a beautiful on-screen display. You can even use the car's integrated microphone to simply tap and tell it where you want to go, and Google will navigate you there. So what do you get for your money with the EX-T? Well, as I said, you get that fantastic new turbocharged engine. You also get this lovely interior, your 7-inch display. You get heated cloth seats, and they're actually quite good. I could use a little more bolster support in the corners. They're a little bit more geared for comfort than sport. That's where this car does lean. It is more of a commuter's car, more of a family car than a sports car. It'll dance, but the seats do betray the fact that this isn't meant to be a sports car. You also get an economy mode that for the first time in a Civic actually works and doesn't just feel like you turned off the engine. And the 9th gen, you press economy and it feels like you have a small hamster running along inside trying his darndest to move the car, and he just can't. In this new car, it really does just feel like everything's a little bit more smoothed out, a little more mellow. It turns down the air conditioning, so it really does work. But to be honest, even in normal mode, it gets such good gas mileage that most of the time I don't bother. I mostly just use it on the highway. You also get that new digital display with its integrated infotainment system. You get better rear visibility. You get a fantastic backup camera. This is one of the best backup cameras that I've used. Because the screen is so good, you really can see what's behind you. It has dynamic guidelines that as you turn the wheel are going to show you exactly where the car is going. It also has a multi-mode system where you can tap and select different views, including a straight down view that shows you where the rear of the car is. That's incredibly handy for anybody who has a tight garage or is frequently backing up into tricky parking spaces. I love that Honda's given me the option to select that here. So bottom line, likes and dislikes on the new Honda Civic. I love the new engine. I like the chassis tuning. I think this new interior feels fantastic. It really feels like my first Acura in here, which is a fantastic thing to say for a car that starts in the low to mid $20,000 range. It feels incredibly grown up. This is a car that you can drive your boss around in and not feel embarrassed. This is a really great car for people who have families, for young professionals, for anybody who just wants an upscale premium feeling car on a budget. Other things I do like: Honda's new lane watch system. When you turn on the right indicator, you get a full color screen picture of what's next to the car. They've used a camera there instead of just simply a blind spot awareness system. I find this to be significantly safer than the blind spot awareness systems. I don't just have a little light that's some radar detector and I'm kind of relying on that. I really do know exactly what's next to the car. I don't even have to turn on my indicator if I want. I can just tap the end of the stock and have the display show me what's next to the car. It's a great safety feature and one that you really get used to after you've been driving this car. Things I don't like. The infotainment system has a billion features in it, and a lot of them are really tricky to get to. For example, if you're in Android Auto, you can't, at least any way that I've found, adjust bass and treble. You have to go back into the FM settings, and somehow audio controls are somewhere in the radio controls. It's a really odd system, and it doesn't feel quite polished. Most of the time it's going to be fine for you, and I suspect a lot of people won't notice. But if you're one of those people like me who really wants to tune everything, you can do it, but it's not always super intuitive. Other thing I don't like, if I had to say or be shot, I don't feel like every piece of trim in here is quite as nailed down as it was in the 8th and 9th gen Civics. It's not anything that you would immediately notice, but a few pieces feel a little bit squeakier than they did in the 8th gen. It's a tiny, tiny little critique, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. So, should you buy the 2016 Honda Civic EX-T? If you're in the market for a small to mid-size car, absolutely. If you want a manual transmission, unfortunately with this engine you can't currently have it. Next year Honda's bringing out their hatchback version of this car. It's the first time they've done a Civic hatchback in quite a long time. I think that's going to be the one that enthusiasts are going to go for. Reportedly, you're going to get a few more horsepower out of the turbo, a little bit more torque, and it's going to have an available manual transmission at any trim level, or so Honda says. So if you're waiting for the SI, but you don't want to quite wait as long as Honda might make you wait, they haven't really announced when they're doing an SI version of this, take a long, hard look at the 2017 Civic hatchback that's coming out next year. Otherwise, if you're looking for an automatic transmission, this car really does that very well. Thanks for watching, guys. This ends our review of the 2016 Honda Civic. Please follow my channel, like and share this video, and we'll see you next time on thegroverwheel.com.